Namaste and welcome to the Bhagavad Gita class at the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Vasudeva Sutan Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Om, O Mother Bhagavad Gita, we meditate on you, who were made known to Partha by the Lord Narayana himself. You who were included in the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. You whom the goddess, who rains down the nectar of Advaita, non-dualism, in 18 chapters, the destroyer of relative existence. We worship Krishna, world teacher, the son of Vasudeva, the supreme delight of his mother Devaki, and the slayer of the demons Kamsa and Chanur. We adore that supremely blissful Madhava, Krishna, by whose grace the mute are made eloquent and the lame are enabled to cross over mountains. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So tonight we will continue our study of the Bhagavad Gita. Last week we tried to, but we had a technical problem, and so we had to cancel the class because of background noise. It turns out apparently to have been a loose connection, which has been fixed now, and so we hope everything goes well tonight and in the future. But we're sorry for that, but we will begin where we were to begin last week. So that is in chapter 12 on verse 8. So chapter 12 is the chapter on devotion, bhakti. And it's a beautiful chapter. Of course, every chapter I say it's a beautiful chapter, and that's true. But then some are more beautiful than others. And chapter 12 is a very important chapter because it deals directly with devotion, though there's devotion all through the Bhagavad Gita. So in the last class, we ended with verses 6 and 7, which are taken together. And so I'll read those and then go forward from there. I'll just read the English. But verse 6 says, "But those who, having dedicated all actions to me, Krishna, and being extremely devoted to me, meditate while thinking of me with single-minded concentration alone." Then verse 7 continues this sentence, "O son of Pritha," that is Arjuna, "for them who have their minds absorbed in me, I become, without delay, the agent of holding them up in Brahman, above the sea of the world which is fraught with death." So again, in this last verse, verse 7, there's a beautiful expression, "Tesham aham samudharta," of them, of those who are devoted to me, with the other qualifications that he gave in the two verses. To them who are thus devoted to me, I am the samudharta, the one who lifts up mrityu samsara sagarat, out of the sea of the samsara, the sea of samsara, which is the sea of death, mrityu samsara. The samsara, which is mrityu, the samsara, the round of cyclic existence, which is the cycle of birth and death. That ocean of samsara, which is the ocean of death. I lift them up. So then we come to verse 8, where we're to begin tonight, which says, Mayeva mana adhatsva mayi buddhim niveshaya nivasishyasi mayeva ata urdhvam na samshaya. So this says, Mayi eva mana adhatsva. Put your mind in me alone. Mayi, in me. Eva, alone. Put your mind, mana adatsva. Put your mind in me alone. That is, fix your mind in me alone. Maya buddhim niveshaya. Rest your buddhi, your intellect in me. And Eva goes with that also, alone. Rest the intellect. I'll come back to explain what that means, in me alone. Nivasishyasi mayeva atta urdhvam na samshaya. After this, you will dwell in me alone. There's no doubt. Na samshaya. If you do this, then afterwards you will dwell in me alone. Now, afterwards can be taken after that, and both would be true. Afterwards, meaning after you do that, after you put your mind in me, rest your intellect in me, then you will dwell in me alone. Or afterwards can mean after the death of the body, but both are meant. Because, of course, in Vedanta, there's the belief in Jivan Mukti, that is freedom while living. And that's not just for people on the path of knowledge, but you see that among devotees also who have become, those who follow the path of devotion, those who have become completely free through the path of devotion in this life itself. And so after we have succeeded in doing this, which he's telling us to do, then after that we dwell in God alone, Mayeva, in me alone. So again, that Mayeva comes twice. In the beginning, put your mind in me alone, Mayeva, mana adhatsva. And then here, nivasishyasi mayeva, you will dwell in me alone. So what does he mean when he says, place your mind in me alone? Fix your mind in me alone, because it means not just put it there and then let it go wherever it wants to, put it there momentarily and then do something else. No, but to fix your mind in me alone. So, and then rest your intellect, buddhi, in me alone. So here he is using two different words, the mind, manas, and the intellect, buddhi, two aspects of mind. And so he's saying that to fix both of them in me alone. So the manas is the lower mind, and the buddhi is the higher mind. As I've said many times in classes, and I'll continue to say it because it's necessary to remember this, that when we say buddhi in Vedanta, and we often translate it as intellect, that's actually a very poor translation. But we use it because there's no better term. And in classical times, in the Middle Ages and Renaissance in Europe, as well as in classical Greek and Roman times, the intellect was a higher function of mind. But in modern times, since the Enlightenment at least, the intellect has become the part of the mind which questions, which doubts, which analyzes, and all of that. No, that's a function of the lower mind, the manas. So that would be a great shock to Western intellectuals to know that they were training only the lower mind. but the lower mind also has to be trained. And intellectual work is a good way to train the lower mind. But it is still the lower mind. The buddhi is the higher mind, which gives certitude and knowledge. So the example is given, traditional example. You see someone in the half-light, in the twilight. So it's dark enough so that you can't see them clearly. You see them at a distance and you can't see them clearly because it's only half-light. But it's light enough so that you can see something. It's not just seeing dark, but you see that there's somebody there, but you can't see clearly who it is. So the manas, the lower mind, questions, is this so-and-so? Is it so-and-so? I was expecting so-and-so to come. Is that him or her? Is it my friend? Is it the neighbor? And so forth. So that's the manas, the lower mind, which is working. Sankalpa vikalpatmaka. That is, the nature of the lower mind is to take decisions and also to doubt. So it is wavering, trying to figure out who it is that is coming. And then when suddenly I see they get close enough so that I see them clearly, I say, oh, that is Mary. Oh, it's Mary who's coming, who I was expecting Mary. That's her. So that sense of certain knowledge, that comes from the buddhi. The buddhi is that which gives certain definite knowledge where there's not any doubt. And it's in the buddhi also because that's the highest, most sattvic or purest part of the mind that all spiritual experience takes place. So place your mind, your manas, the lower mind, in me means think about me. You see, in most of our life, our mind is just on autopilot. We're going through life, doing things with our mind just running on in a stream of consciousness. Just one thought after another arises, and different experiences and different thoughts and memories and so many things come to mind, but it's just a random process. And so one of the things we have to learn to do, which is a long-term, is a lifetime process, we learn to stop that tendency of the mind just to think of random things, to go on its own random course. And that we do in spiritual life, we do it by fixing the mind on a spiritual idea, fixing the mind on God, or on a practice. In Buddhism, they teach mindfulness for that. Mindfulness is to break that habit of the daydreaming mind, the mind just going on half-consciously, mostly unconsciously, thinking random thoughts. So in mindfulness, you're taught to pay attention to everything that you're doing, to be attentive to everything. That's to cut that daydreaming tendency of the mind. And in devotional practice, we're taught to do the mantra, to repeat the mantra as often as you can remember to do it, whether you're walking, whether you're working, whether you're sitting, at all times, to try to keep the stream of the mantra going, to break through that daydreaming tendency of the mind. Or there's the beautiful practice of the presence of God, which Brother Lawrence teaches in his beautiful small book called Practice of the Presence of God, which was just to be aware always that you are in the presence of God. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are in the presence of God. So let me remember that and act as though, at first it's an act of imagination. I've understood theoretically that, yes, God is everywhere and I'm always in the presence of God. And God is all conscious, so it's not that I'm in the presence of God, but neither of us knows it. I may forget it, but God doesn't forget it, because God is consciousness everywhere, full awakened consciousness everywhere. And so I'm always in the presence of God. So let me begin to act and think and act as though I'm always in the presence of God. Let me always move thinking that I'm in the presence of God. And so in that way also I cut through that random stream of consciousness which is always going on. So again, that's a lifetime's practice, but it's worth the practice. Even a little bit helps us. And if we get good at it, then that itself can take us to enlightenment if that effort is strong enough. So put your mind in me means to learn to think about me. Learn to think about me rather than just thinking about the random things that go in the mind normally, the useless thoughts about the past and future and daydreams and all of that go on. And then Maya buddhim niveshaya, then rest your mind in me. Rest your buddhi in me. Again, buddhi we normally translate as intellect because we don't have a good word to translate it with. And so that has been used by convention, at least since Swami Vivekananda's time. But we always have to remember that it doesn't mean what modern society, educated society means by the intellect. So fix your intellect in me means to fix the highest part of the mind in me. That we do through meditation. That we do by focusing the mind on God in a more focused and more intentional way. And so teach the mind to think about God and teach the buddhi to rest in God. So these are two things that in the beginning, the emphasis is more on the manas, the lower mind, because that's what we deal with normally. We haven't yet got a hold of the buddhi and how to deal with it. We practice meditation and so forth, but even there, it's mainly fighting with the manas. But gradually through the practice of meditation, the buddhi is being developed. Gradually through the practice of japa, through the practice of prayer, through the practice of worship, the buddhi is being developed. And a day will come where we can distinguish between the two functions of mind. And so another way of thinking of these two divisions about fix your mind in me and rest your buddhi in me is that Shravana and Manana, they're the three disciplines in the Upanishads, which are the main three disciplines of the path of knowledge in Advaita Vedanta. That is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana means hearing the truth, hearing which includes reading, but that is taking in the truth through instruction. And Manana means thinking about it, trying to figure it out, trying to understand it. And then Nididhyasana means one-pointed meditation. Once you have understood it, one-pointed meditation on it. And so Manana is the Manas deals with Shravana and Manana. That is hearing the truth, learning the truth, hearing lectures, reading books, and so forth. And then Manana, thinking about it, examining it, trying to see the reason behind it, trying to understand the logic of it, etc. Not necessarily in an intellectual way, but in our own way, whether it's devotional or intellectual, doesn't matter. Whatever is natural to us, we try to understand the teaching. That's manana. And so those are engaging the manas with the idea of God, with the idea of spirit, with the idea of spirituality. And then nididhyasana, one-pointed focusing of the mind in meditation, that is resting the buddhi in the self. So that's another way, not contrary to the first one, but another way of analyzing the meaning of these two parts. Fix your mind in me, rest your buddhi in me. Also, it's worth pointing out, as I have done in the past once in a while, and will do in the future too, that the buddhi also refers to the heart, because the heart in not just Indian thought, not just Hindu thought, not just Buddhist thought. It was in ancient Greek thought, in ancient Roman thought, in Native American thought, in the Christian thought, all over the world. The idea was that the higher mind, the seat of the higher mind is the heart. So most people think that, well, that was because of confused anatomy. They didn't have science, and so they thought that this was where the mind was. They didn't realize that it was here in the brain. No, they also knew that our thinking, most of our thinking is done up here, because the eyes are here, the ears are here, the nose and the tongue are here. So 4 of our 5 senses are centered right here. And so there's a sense that I am here, dealing with the senses, and that I am thinking about the senses and so forth here. But the buddhi, the higher function of mind, was thought to be here. And the soul was considered to be here, as far as the soul can be located spatially. And so that was true in all cultures. And that's because this is where eventually when the buddhi awakens, this is where it awakens, in the heart. And so the buddhi, hridaya, meaning heart, and buddhi and dhi, those three, and hrid, which also means heart, those four terms all mean the same thing. The buddhi, dhi, just the one syllable dhi, or hridaya or hrit, all of those, or the lotus of the heart, all of those mean the buddhi. So then, nivasishyasi mayeva ata urdhvam na samshaya, then you dwell in me alone. Then you will dwell in me thereafter. There's no doubt about it. Nasamshaya, no doubt about it. So here Sri Krishna is giving another promise, as he said in the verse 7, that Tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat. I, for such devotees, am the one who lifts them out of the ocean of samsara, which is the ocean of death. So here also he's saying that such people who fix their mind in me, rest their buddhi, intellect in me, they will dwell in me hereafter. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. So that's a promise from the mouth of God, that if we can learn to fix our mind in God, then all of our problems are over. That in that way we will come to dwell in God. So as I've said various times, and as is taught in the tradition of the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedanta scriptures, that here Sri Krishna is speaking of himself as God. So he's not speaking of himself as the person he's not speaking of himself just as the charioteer of Arjuna. He's speaking of himself as God. So it's not just Sri Krishna who's speaking here. It's Ishvara as Sri Krishna who is speaking. But he's speaking as Ishvara. So Krishna is Ishvara, but Krishna doesn't have a trademark or a patent on Ishvara. He hasn't copyrighted or patented or trademarked Ishvara. Krishna is Ishvara, but so is Shiva, so is Kali, so is the God of the Christians, Allah of the Muslims, the Buddha nature of the Mahayana Buddhists, and so forth. All of that, all of those are different names and different ways of conceiving of the inconceivable divine reality. And so Sri Krishna is speaking from that identity. So that's what allows a Hindu to interpret these statements of Sri Krishna in a liberal manner. And to point out to Christians that the same could be done with the statements of Jesus in the Christian Bible. Where Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. That he's speaking as the incarnation of God. He's not speaking as an exclusive prophet who was born at a particular time and lived in a particular place. But he's speaking of his universal nature, which is not contrary to the universal nature of Krishna or of Rama or of Ramakrishna or of Sri Chaitanya or of the various conceptions of deity, of God. So fix the mind in me alone. In me alone rest the intellect. There is no doubt that hereafter you will dwell in me alone. So that means he's speaking of the state of realization, where we realize that we dwell, where it's not a concept, it's not a practice, it's not something we're trying to do, it's not something we're trying to remember. He's saying that then you will dwell in me, meaning consciously. Meaning that we will consciously dwell in God, that everything will become God. That even here, even in this life, to use a Vaishnava term, we will be living in Vaikuntha. To use a Shaiva term, we will be living in Kailasa. We will be living in the divine realm. Then itself, we'll consciously, in full awareness, unforgetting, unforgetful awareness of our divine nature, our union with God, and a dwelling in the realm of God, where everything is divine, where there is no misery, where the flame of joy is a smokeless flame. That is, it produces no smoke. It's pure light, the pure light of joy, without any reaction, no smoke to the flame. So then verse 9 says, Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mayi sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mamichhaptum dhananjaya. So here, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that, O Dhananjaya, O Arjuna, Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mayi sthiram. If you are not able to fix your mind steadily in me. And here he uses a third word for mind, the chitta. And by that we have to understand that he's talking about both the faculties of manas and buddhi. So the whole of the mind and all of its faculties. So if, O Dhananjaya, you are not able to fix your mind in me, so he's giving an alternative if you can't do that, if you're not able to do that. And he says, Abhyasa yogena tatos mamichhaptum dhananjaya. Then seek to attain me through the yoga of practice. Seek to attain me through the yoga of practice. So now if I'm able to fix my mind in God, to think about God and think about God only, and to rest the buddhi in the deep meditation on God, then my problem is solved. Then it's only a question of time before that stream of meditation takes me to the absolute. But I will, if I can do that, if I can fix my mind in God and rest the buddhi in God, then I will have the sense that I have entered the stream, srotapanna, as it's called in Buddhism, the very beautiful term of the stream enterer. It was from the time of the Buddha. It was believed that there was a stage in spiritual practice where you become a srotapanna, one who has entered into the stream. That is the stream of enlightenment which will carry you all the way to full enlightenment. So once you enter into the stream, the current itself will carry you. And so that's what we want to do, to enter into the stream of God's grace. As Sri Ramakrishna said, the wind of God's grace is always blowing. We just have to unfurl our sails so that we can catch the wind. Once we catch the wind, we realize that now I'm on my way. Now the wind of grace is carrying me towards God. Now all I have to do is just to participate, just to remain still, and time will take me to the goal of enlightenment. But if we can't do that, he's saying here in verse 9, if we can't fix the mind in God, the mind is restless, we can't rest the intellect in God, we can't meditate and so forth, then practice abhyasa yoga, that is, practice the yoga of practice, abhyasa meaning practice. So then we can take this in different ways, and all of them are true. Because the context of this chapter is bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. It means following vaidhi bhakti. That is or mukhya bhakti or vaidhi bhakti. That is the bhakti of rules and regulations. That is, follow certain rules and regulations in order to train the mind. Learn to train the mind so that you can begin to put it on God, so that you can begin to think about God. And Madhusudana says in his commentary here that it includes things like the worship of images, doing puja, singing hymns and things like that. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, etc., the famous verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which tell about the different practices, pada sevanam, etc., the different practices in the path of devotion. So doing those, that is, doing devotional practices so that the mind is trained through practice in thinking about God. So following Vaidhi Bhakti, which is the bhakti of vidhis and nishedas, that is, injunctions and prohibitions, following the rules of devotion, because not just because it's good to follow rules. No, the rules are intended or designed rather because by following them, the mind begins to learn how to think about God. And so it's not just injunctions because somebody liked to control people, but injunctions because it was found that by doing these things and avoiding those things, the mind becomes fitted for the path of devotion. So abhyasa yoga. So again, Sri Krishna is saying that if you can't do this practice, this simple practice, simple but difficult, of fixing the mind in me, resting the higher mind in me, then turn to the yoga of practice. And again, as I said, as Madhusudana says, through worship of images, through kirtana, singing, through hymns, through puja, etc., then we gradually train the mind to think of God. And then verse 10 says, Abhyasepya samarthosi madkarma paramo bhava madartham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. So abhyase api asamarthosi madkarma paramo bhava. If you are not even able to do practice, so you can't fix your mind in God, you can't rest the buddhi in God, but you also are not able to do practice in the sense of the traditional practices of bhakti yoga, which was the next step that he offered. If you can't do the higher, then do that. But even if you can't even do that, you can't do worship, you can't, you don't have the opportunity for joining kirtan and reading the holy scriptures and helping with the seva, the services in a temple and so forth, you can't do the traditional devotional practices, then madkarma paramo bhava, then be thoroughly devoted to works for me. Absorbed in actions for me. Marartham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. If you do actions devoted to me, then siddhim avapsyasi, then you will attain to perfection. So if you are unable even to practice the yoga of practice, be absorbed in actions for me. Even by undertaking actions for me, you will attain perfection. So here, do karma yoga, thinking that every action I do is for you, O Lord. Not everything I do is for him. No, everything I do is for you. That is, have that sense that everything that I'm doing is an offering for you, O Lord. O Krishna, O Rama, O Shiva, O Durga, O Ramakrishna, or the God of the Christians, Allah of the Muslims, etc. Everything that I do as an offering to you. So if we can do that, then also we will come to perfection. Again, there's so far these three levels, and then the fourth one is coming. So start with fixing your mind in me and resting your higher mind in me through meditation. That's difficult. That's the easy path if we can do it. If we can do it, that's all we need. We need nothing else. Just that. Brother Lawrence attained to perfection just by learning to fix his mind in the presence of God. That's all that he did. He said that he tried traditional prayers and in the church and all of that, nothing worked for him. But just convincing himself that I am in the presence of God. Let me continue in that awareness that I'm in the presence of God. And he attained to perfection through that alone. So that's an easy way, if we can do it. But many people find that very difficult. And so then you come to the next level down where you do devotional things, temple service or home shrine service. You do puja and do other directly devotional things, devotional practices. And you practice trying to put the mind on God. And the mind runs away, you bring it back, put it there again. The mind runs away, you bring it back, put it there, it runs away. So the yoga of practice, it includes all of those things. And if you can't do that, then do work for me. And so you find that people who are very active by nature but have it hard, they can't meditate, and they also are not attracted to sort of ritualistic activities and so forth. Then they can do their work as a direct devotional exercise for the sake of God. Mat karma paramo bhava. Be one who has mat karma paramo, whose work for me is their goal. That is, one who has as their goal of all action the doing the work for me, offering the work to me as a direct offering. So that is the next. And so that's a beautiful thing that I've seen many devotees who take that up, who say that, oh, Maharaj, I'm not good at meditation. But they take up that attitude that let me do whatever I can for God with that direct devotional approach. But that's not all that is offered. Then he says in the verse 12, verse 11, sorry. Athaitadapyashaktosi kartum madyogamashritah sarvakarma phalatyagam tatah kuru yatatmavan. So ata etad api ashaktosi. So if you are unable to do even this, if you're unable even to do this, to do actions, to do everything that you do with the sense, I'm doing it for you, O Lord. I'm doing it for you. Kartum madyoga mashrita. Kartum, if you're unable to do even this much, then madyoga mashrita, having resorted to yoga for my sake, or the yoga for me, sarva karma phalatyagam, renouncing the fruits of all action, tata kuru yatatmanan. Do that with a dedicated mind, with a mind dedicated to surrendering the fruits of my actions. So now what's the difference between 11 and the previous verse, verse 10? Verse 10 is when all of your actions are directly, you're doing it out of love for God. Everything that you do, you're doing as an offering to God. You're aware that this action is meant for God. But some people, they don't have the ability to do that also. That is, the mind they like to be active, they like to do things, but they can't muster or focus a devotional attitude in the midst of the work, that I am doing this for you, O Lord. Then just do the work. Do it with a sense of self-control, yatatmavan, having controlled the mind, and madyoga mashrita, having taken recourse to yoga for me, then surrender the fruits of your action. So you see the difference. One is, I do this for you, Lord. I'm going to do this work. I do it for you. While I'm doing it, from time to time, I think I'm doing it for you. At the end, I think I did it for you. Now let me do this. I do this for you. That idea of every action I'm doing is dedicated to you. But that itself is difficult. For people who can do it, that's wonderful. And the results will come quickly from doing that. But for many, they can work. and they've understood that the selfish desire and doing things for my own sake, just do it for my own sake, that itself is the cause of my bondage. So let me work, and let me just surrender the fruits of my action. Let me not do it because of the fruits of the action. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Yours is the right to the action alone, and never to the fruits of the action. So understanding that, let me work and just be unattached to the fruits of action, and have that general sense in my mind that the fruits of the action, that is taken care of by God. And so I have no right to that. There's work in front of me to be done. I'm active by nature. I have to work, or I like to work. Many people love to work. So whether it's because I love to work and I love to be active, I'm active by nature, or because I have to be active, it doesn't matter. But the action in front of me has to be done. I do it, but let me do it because it has to be done. Not trying to get fruits for myself, not always trying to get something out of everything that I do. There's some people who can't do anything without thinking, what do I get out of this? What am I going to get out of this? If they give a donation to a temple like ours or another temple, their first thought is, what am I going to get back by giving this to the temple? No, learn to renounce the fruits of your action. And Sri Krishna is saying that do that. If you can't do anything else, then do that. If you are unable to even do that actions devoted to me, where you're consciously doing work for me, then having resorted to the yoga for me and becoming controlled and discriminative, undertake renunciation of the results of all actions. So here he comes to the fourth. So he's given 4 different practices. 1, fix your mind in me, rest your higher mind in me in meditation. Then if you can't do that, then do abhyasa yoga, that is the yoga of practice. Then do traditional devotional actions, worship, service in a temple, singing hymns and the various doing japa, all of these things. Do the yoga of practice. Through that also you will come to liberation. If you can't do that, then do whatever actions you do, but do them for my sake. Do everything for my sake, thinking that everything that I do is a sacrifice to God. Then that also will take you to liberation. But if you can't do that also, then work, but give up the fruits of your action. That also is a way to liberation. And so he says in verse 12, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat jnanat dhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karma phala tyagas tyagat shantiranantaram. So here he says that knowledge is greater than practice. Greater than knowledge is meditation. Jnanat dhyanam vishishyate. Greater than knowledge is meditation. Dhyanat karma phala tyaga. Greater than meditation is the renunciation of all fruits of action. Tyagat shantiranandaram. From renunciation comes the unending peace. That is, comes a liberation. So here he's saying he's left till the last, the lowest rung of the practices. He says, if you can't do anything else, then give up the fruits of action. So the natural thought is, yeah, but is that enough? If I give up the fruits of action, if that's all that I can do, well, I can do it. Maybe I can try to do that, but what's the use? I'm already 4 steps down from the top. So the results are going to be 4 steps down from the top. Also, it's not going to be anywhere close to liberation. No, here he's saying that from renunciation of the fruits of actions comes the unending peace. That higher than practice is knowledge, and higher than knowledge is meditation. So what does that mean? Here we have to understand what he means by knowledge and practice and meditation. Because if he means that meditation is higher than the knowledge of the Atman, the experiential knowledge of liberation, that makes no sense. So jnana couldn't possibly mean the liberating knowledge here, the supreme knowledge. So what it means is knowledge is higher than practice. So practice means, coming back to Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, which is taught in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad as the three basic practices of Vedanta. That you begin by hearing the truth, learning the truth, taking it in through lectures, through reading, through guru, etc. And then you think about it. That is abhyasa here in this verse. That is practice, hearing and thinking about the truth. Once you've understood through manana, first Shravana and then Manana, thinking about it, then you get an understanding. Now I understand what they're talking about. I haven't realized it, but I have an understanding of what the scriptures are talking about now. That is jnana here. That understanding is jnana, or knowledge here. So that is higher than the practice which led to it. You do Shravana and Manana, hearing the truth and thinking about the truth, in order to get understanding. So the understanding is higher than the practice that led to it. But then you have to go to nididhyasana, that is meditation. So meditation is higher than understanding. So meditation has to be done on the basis of understanding. Once I've understood that God is, that the self is, that I am, that God is, and God can be realized, then I have to fix the mind in that. So meditation is higher than that understanding. But he's saying that higher even than that is the renunciation of the fruits of action. So if the thought comes that, well, I can't do those other three practices, all I can do is work and try to work unselfishly because I have to work anyway, so let me just try to work because it's there to be done, without always referring everything back to myself. Let me give up the desire for the fruits of action. The fruits will come if they come. If they don't come, that's okay. But what use is that? No, the use is that itself leads to the shantimanantaram, shantiranantaram. That is the everlasting peace, peace without any break, peace without any end. Eternal, lasting peace will come through that. So there's no fear that is not going to be enough. So in these verses, Sri Krishna has given us 4 levels of practice, and through proficiency in any one of these levels, we can come to the divine. As again, Brother Lawrence, he tried the different methods of meditation that he was taught in his monastery in France. And nothing worked. He tried to focus his mind in prayer in church, and that didn't work. But then he realized that, well, I'm the monastery cook. I'm here all day among these pots and pans and cutting vegetables and cooking things for the community. But God is here also. If God is everywhere, God is here among my pots and pans. So let me just be aware of the presence of God. So this was like taking the 3rd level of practice, where you do everything that you do for the sake of God. So he thought that everything that he was doing in the presence of God and for the sake of God. He said late in his life, wrote in one of his beautiful letters, that now I pick up even a piece of straw from the ground for the love of God. That is, everything he did for the love of God. So that was the 3rd level of practice, and through that he became a great saint, a man of realization through the path of devotion. So any of these practices, any of these levels of practice, will take us to the highest. So we find out that which I can do, what can I do, and then let me work with that. So knowledge is surely superior to practice. That is, understanding is superior to hearing and thinking. Meditation is greater than knowledge. As compared with meditation, renunciation of the results of actions is superior. From renunciation, peace follows immediately, or there's peace without end, without any interruption. So I'm going to stop here today. It's a little early, a couple of minutes early, but I'm going to stop because the next verses go together, and they are the last verses of chapter 12. Chapter 12 is one of the short chapters in the Gita, 20 verses, and many of the chapters are over 40 verses, and some are even longer, like chapter 2, which is 72 chapters, 72 verses, and chapter 18 is very long also. So we'll stop here, and the next time we'll take the remaining verses of chapter 12 because they all go together. They are the qualities of a true devotee. That is, of an accomplished devotee, of one who has become established in devotion. In chapter 2, Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, Stita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava stita dhir kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. In verse 54 of chapter 2, Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, what is the nature of a stita prajna? How does he sit? How does he walk? How does he talk? Etc. And so here, Arjuna is not asking, but Sri Krishna is telling how a person established in devotion behaves, what the nature of such a person is. So very beautiful verses. So as I will explain at greater length next class, these qualities that are mentioned of the established devotee are manifested spontaneously in the life of one who is established in devotion. But for us, these are practices. So in reading these are things that we are to take up as practice. So that will be next time. So I'll give announcements, and then if there are any questions, I'll answer the questions, and then we'll close for today. So announcements are, on Thursday at 11 o'clock in the morning, we will have the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna class. And on Sunday, I said on Sunday that on this next Sunday, I would speak on Ganesha, but I'm going to speak on Ganesha the week after next, because this Sunday is the day after the 4th of July, so I'm going to speak on Vedanta and American ideals. Something in that realm I try to speak on the Sunday closest to July 4th. So on this Sunday I'll speak on that, Vedanta and American ideals, and the following Sunday on Ganesha. And then on next Tuesday we'll continue with this class and come to the conclusion of chapter 12. So any questions or anything? Yes.
Multiple questions from Surashkale.
Okay, good. Second. Okay, good. So, can you please explain Buddhi Yoga mentioned in chapter 2? Is it the same as Jnana Yoga? Yes, basically, in chapter 2 of the Gita, Sri Krishna often speaks of Buddhi Yoga. And he speaks of when he speaks of just yoga in chapter 2, he is usually speaking of karma yoga. Now, the term yoga in the Gita is used in several different ways throughout the Gita, but most often, especially in chapter 2, when he says just yoga, he's speaking of karma yoga. That is the renunciation of the fruits of action, selfless activity, doing that which is to be done just because it's to be done and not for the fruits of the action. What he was talking about in the fourth practice here tonight. And Buddhi Yoga, when he says that, he's speaking about the path of knowledge. That is the approach to the impersonal, the path of discrimination between the eternal and the transient, between the self and the not self, and focusing on the impersonal reality. So that is Buddhi Yoga, because Buddhi is the highest part of the mind which is fixed on the impersonal reality, the self. And so therefore he calls it Buddhi Yoga. Surrendering the fruits of all action seems to be the highest, higher than meditation. No, it's not that the practice is higher, but that if one is able to surrender the fruits of action, that leads to the highest. And so you have bypassed all of the other practices. So again, this shows how in the thought of Sri Krishna, and here he's contradicting Shankara and the other acharyas, not just Shankara, even the other acharyas, who say that karma yoga is only for the purification of mind. That was the traditional idea. It seems obvious to me in reading the Gita that that is not what Sri Krishna is saying, even though the acharyas of all of the schools of Vedanta say that when Sri Krishna is praising karma yoga, he's only praising it for those who are not fit for the higher yogas, so that they will practice it. But then the time comes when they've purified the mind, then they have to go on to the higher yogas, whether it's bhakti for the devotees or jnana for the Advaitins. But here he's saying that if you can truly renounce the fruits of your action, you become thoroughly free from the hankering after the fruits of your action, then you have attained to the highest. So it's not that the practice is the highest, it's that that practice itself can lead to the highest. Then you don't need the others. So again, that is a hopeful note for those who can only do that, because again, it sounds like since they're doing the lowest of the four practices, that the attainment is not going to be significant. I do that, and then when I've mastered that, then I have to go to the third practice and do that until I've mastered that, then I go to the second practice, do that until I've mastered it, go to the first practice. No, it's not like that. If you can renounce the fruits of actions completely once and for all, just through that practice, you can come to the highest. And that highest is therefore higher than the other practices, because the others are still practices. All four are practices, but the attainment is higher than any of the practices. So that's the idea. Where does giving the power of attorney mentioned by Thakur come into this hierarchy? Yes, that's a very good idea. That would come into, it would sort of be a cross between the third and fourth. That is, doing all action for me, or surrendering the fruits of all action. So this would be sort of a combination of the two, because you're remembering that I have surrendered the power of attorney to God, and so I have no right to take decisions for myself. I won't go into that's a big topic which needs a lot of explanation. I won't do that now because that would be another talk. But we have to understand what I can't make any decision means. It doesn't mean that you become indecisive. It means that everything that you do, you seek to surrender the decision to God, and then you go ahead and do what you see to be done, but thinking, if this be your will, O Lord, and if it's not, show me the other way. So in that way, I get the sense of doing everything with a sense of resignation to God, even though I still have to make decisions because I'm not hearing the voice of God. And so again, the power of attorney, surrendering the power of attorney, as Sri Ramakrishna had Girish Chandra Ghosh do, means it's sort of a combination of the third and fourth. So. Okay, so now let me give the closing chant. Om Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutastun Vandi Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapada Kramopanishadair Gayandiyam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyandiyam Yogino Yasyandam Navidu Surasuragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. We bow to that Supreme Being, whom Brahma and the gods praise with divine hymns, whose glories the singers of the Sama hymns sing through the Vedas and Upanishads, whom the yogis see with their minds absorbed in that through meditation, and whose end and beginning neither the gods nor the demons can know. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe.